Efforts to extinguish a massive warehouse fire in Brisbane have stalled after the roof and side of the building collapsed.
Investigators don't know how the fire started. The building is set to be torn down.
Fire crews have remained here since the fire broke out at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
Culture Kings sells in stores and online, and this is where their stock is kept.
This is a story how I lost $10 million in one day with a fire at our warehouse at Culture Kings. But the lessons from it were the most valuable in my lifetime, which led us to later selling our company at a $600 million valuation and then IPOing on the New York Stock Exchange. Okay, so it's December 2016. We'd just done a new store at Pacific Fair on the Gold Coast, our hometown for Tani and I. We'd built up so much hype for the opening. The queue was the whole way wrapped around. That store, in its first month in December, did $2 million. I remember there was like $500,000 over our best case scenario, and it was just absolutely smoked it out of the park. And I remember having that feeling, seeing the just crazy busyness there at Christmas, thinking to myself of like, we've got the model. You could plonk this down in Paris, in London, in New York. This is a global model. This is the future of retail with the sharpshooter and everything, and our claw machines and the gamification and the DJ. It was just such an electric vibe in that store. We had our Boxing Day at the end of December where we smoked it, did millions of dollars and totally blew out our records. We actually cooked our distribution. We couldn't get the orders out. And then January 8th, happened, our lives changed forever. Tani and I were home on the weekend. I had my warehouse manager that was around at our house, who's also my personal trainer, Tyrell. He was helping us move some furniture. And Tani came running downstairs and goes, the fire alarm's going off in the warehouse, it's on fire. And she was trying to open the cameras and I was trying to as well. And I was like, wait, what's that? Is that a fire? And Tani and I both start freaking out. I immediately jump in the car with Tyrell to drive to Brisbane. She has to wait because we have our son at home who's a baby, wait for my parents to come around and watch him until she can drive separately. I let Tyrell drive it. I'm just freaking out, shaking. I'm glued to my phone watching our warehouse burn down. And it's so crazy is in that moment, like the things that go through your head, I'm like just thinking, just don't hit those big delivery of Jordans that we got, just go around those, please. But I kept thinking, it'll be all right, this stock will be okay, we'll still be able to do this. I'm trying to come up with solutions, but at the same time, I'm just absolutely stressing out beyond belief, and this stress is building. And then I'm on the phone to Tani as she's driving in the other car, and then she's talking, she's watching it on the cameras. And then my biggest fear ever enters me. Tani is 6 months pregnant. It's like, we all know how stress to a baby can be catastrophic, but this is the most stress I'm sure both of us has ever experienced in our life by 100-fold. And my whole thought switched from the warehouse and the fire to how do I protect Tani and take away the stress at this time? As well as she's driving, watching her phone, the cameras of the warehouse burning while driving. And this is an hour drive, so it's just building and building. And even from 20 Ks out, we can start to see the smoke as we know the fire brigades get there and everything. By the time we get there, it's completely flattened, our warehouse is gone, and we know we've lost every bit of stock. We can't even enter any part of the office building. It's completely fire brigaded off. And I remember as we sat there and a heap of staff came, saw it or heard about it, came from around to comfort us, but we are freaking out inside. And I remember even as we're standing there, this guy was, oh, are you in charge here? I need someone address to send this bill to. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's me. He goes, oh yeah, because this is burn and this closed toxic material, it's flowing into this lake. We're gonna have to pay for this environmental services to suck it up. It's gonna cost a few $100,000. I just need to know who to send the bill to. And I'm like, me? I just wanted to crawl under a rock and just hide. I was so freaking out. And the staff, I know I could see the look in their eyes. They're like, have I just lost my job? What do I do? We went back. I was trying to stay as strong as possible for Tani, always thinking about the stress that this is causing for her and thinking about the baby and thinking about breathing. It will be fine, it will be relaxed, even though inside I'm just my pants thinking we've just lost everything. I remember even on the drive home, just wanting to uppercut myself. I'm like, I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I diversify something? Why didn't we just buy one investment property or something outside the business? Because that's how we grew Culture Kings, all this with no loans and no investors, is we doubled down every time. Every time we made some bit of profit, we would always say we're reinvesting it into the flywheel, into better product, better experience. And that was how we can compound and grow. The problem was, from a basic investor point of view, we had 99.99% of our wealth in one asset, and now that's gone. As we got back, I remember, I was getting Tani to go to sleep, and I remember I was tossing and turning. I couldn't sleep all night. But as I woke up in the morning, I remember I needed to follow my routine. I was lucky enough to go to a Wim Hof seminar a few years before and did the whole cold exposure and Wim Hof breathing, then been hooked on it ever since as part of my morning routine. So I got up, did my cold shower straight away, went straight into my Wim Hof breathing, and then I did a separate sort of meditation after. And I just really embraced this internal part of myself. Is like, do you know what? I know as much as I've lost all the stock, all the money, the knowledge, the skills, it's all there. You could put me back to the markets with 50 bucks. I know I could build this motherfucker back. And I built this intensity and certainty that was just triggering that. And I was like, I'm gonna use this as a fucking story. I'm gonna use this as to define who we are. And it's like, we are gonna come back bigger and stronger than ever. And I remember the intensity that I came with into work that day. It was 100x what I'd ever brought before. And my productivity went 100x. Within 48 hours, we had a new warehouse, lease signed, deliveries getting done. I'd create such a standard with my team, which was the most important thing. Is a lot of the A players all were like, right, let's do this. And they raised to the standard. But the best thing was that the B and C players suddenly were like, oh, this is too hard, and just resigned under the pressure. And this created our theory that we would say at Culture Kings, it's the Homer into the bush theory, backed away. When the going got tough, they ran for the hill. But what we do when something breaks at Culture Kings, we don't go, oh, not my job, and try and push it under the rug. We all charge towards the problem. We all get in there. How can we help solve it? How can we add value? That became one of our core competencies that was built into our culture from this fire moment. And our productivity soared. As much as problems came left and right from every angle, I remember our PayPal froze because we had 800 grand in orders we still hadn't shipped from Boxing Day. We had to refund. They froze our PayPal, and then people reported us to the ACCC because they haven't shipped our order from Boxing Day, and we said we didn't have the stock, and they were like, but it was on sale, I want the deal. But I had this clarity of thought. I was like, I'm never going to get this opportunity to build our website again where we've got this downtime. We got rid of all the dead code, all the and built it from first principles. We built better processes of ordering and buying. We put better warehouse management because we could come from first principles again and not have to carry over legacy systems. But then came one of the biggest challenges. I'd already signed this lease at Chadstone, which is the highest grossing shopping centre in Australia. And it was by far our biggest rent. I think it was about 12,000 bucks a week, which was, one of those oh shit moments. The big thing though, Tani was so pregnant. And Tani was the most crucial part in a store opening because she was the one that operationally that pulled it all together. I didn't know how to do any of that, and no one else in our team did. She had this whole system and Asana boards and checklists and could curate it and just make this whole magical experience come to life. All I did was come in and train the salespeople. So we looked at the calendar and we're like, okay, when is the last day Tani can fly? Right up to the 9 months pregnant, if you get the letter from the doctor. We'd got that date in April, and that was a Sunday. We said, right, draw the line in the sand. It has to open this Saturday, the store. We went to the shop fitters. We're like, what do we have to cut out or change or move or pivot or on to be able to get this to hit this date? But everyone, we had the certainty and we aligned them with this date. We were going to find the way. We were going to make the way. We are hitting this date. And everyone just glued in on this was the date we had to open this store. Everything came together into the last moments. It's crazy. Work expands to the time you allow for it. From the inventory to the stock to the shop fit out. Right before, we're about 48 hours out and the shop fitters still have an enormous amount to do. You're looking around the shop, there is no way this is going to get done. But I am so grateful. Scott Weir and the team, they did insane. They literally worked the last 48 hours. They didn't go home. Like, I'm talking no sleep. I didn't even know how they did it. And I remember the night before the shop opened, it was about 11 p.m. I'm like, I've got to get Tani some sleep. She's 9 months pregnant. She's been here since 6 a.m. You know, it's 11 p.m. at night. I'm so worried about the baby, her being on our feet. She just doesn't stop. The shop fitters still had to build the entire shoe wall. The entire shoe, it's 11 o'clock at night. The store opens at 9 o'clock in the morning. The entire shoe wall had to be built. A couple of staff I got to leave with us, the last staff, Jason Tahuya and Mike Angel were there. Mike was a software developer, a head of IT, shop chief operations officer. Jason, head of our warehouse. They were leaving with us. And I remember this moment, we were going to the car and they just said, oh, we're gonna go to the toilet or we got to go back for something. And I was like, oh, okay, weird, because I thought we were going to the same place. Anyway, we went home. I cannot believe what they did. They went back and helped the shop fitters. They learned how to put together this shoe wall. When we came back at 6 in the morning, they were still there putting together the shoe wall. And we took the whole way up. The store opened at 9 o'clock. Literally 8:55, they're still screwing the shoe wall together as we're putting the shoes on the wall. As those last bolts are tightened, we open the doors. The queue is crazy. People have been waiting since early morning. The intensity and magic of that opening of the Chadstone, we have our record day. But as we partied that night, we woke up in the morning, we're boarding the Virgin flight with Tani. Like, what a crazy experience, what a crazy it was done. And as we boarding, she asked for the letter because she could tell Tani was so pregnant. Tani pulls it out and she reads it up and goes, oh, this is the last day that you can fly. And it was like, oh my God. Work expands to the time you allow for it. Remember, we set this date when we drew a line in the sand. This is when it has to open. And to think of those thousands of things that had to come into a line for this all to happen and pull it off. And it was just like, wow, what an experience, what a story. As we went home, we had our beautiful baby daughter, you know, not long later, you know, Chadstone was off and we grew and grew throughout the rest of the year. And we played this video at the Christmas party at the end of that year that had the fire and the whole build back. And we actually grew more out of that fire than ever before. And what was the lessons that I took away from it? I didn't know what productivity was until that fire, until I was forced under that intensity of what was possible. Did that expand my actual threshold of control of, oh, I now know what's possible in a day. I now know how to use every minute, how to extract that value and intensity, not just out of myself, but out of my team. And we built these core values and these stories that were part of our culture. Work expands to the time you allow for it. When something breaks, we don't homer into the bush, we charge at it. We race to try and fix it and solve it. We all add value. This is how we grow, this is how we learn, and this is how we build. To never waste a crisis. This crisis was this opportunity to rebuild everything from first principles and build it better. And it's just like a story, I'm sure you've all had it, you know, you're doing an assignment at school and then suddenly get the wheel of death and it didn't save it. You open your computer back up, you want to blame someone, why it's someone else's fault. You're like, I can't redo my whole assignment again. That was so many thousand words I typed. But after you get over that fact and you just start again and do it, you realize you do it like 5 times faster and 5 times better. This was the same for when a crisis happens, just to use it. There's actual opportunity in it. But then most of all, it brought me that lesson of diversification in business, is that as you build a business, you still need to diversify at some point. You can't just keep betting the whole farm. And as evolving from just being an entrepreneur to an investor, this is where I built this structure. After this year, I built this clear path of how I was going to exit, how I was going to take money off the table that I was not going to touch, that was going to be separate from the business, so that I would never feel that pressure and intensity and put my family through that again. I wanted that safety and security net for them. That led to later, as we did the deal and I was able to sell $300 million in cash, but then still bet the rest in the IPO and let it ride. And it was this amazing feeling where we could take these big risks, like doing this crazy store in Vegas, the biggest store, and the crazy fit out, where we diversified enough where we could really let it ride from a business perspective and build that dream, that vision. And that is why it is so important. You do have to understand that if you're running a business, these crises will happen. I know it won't be our last, but in building that muscle, I look back on it, on that Culture Kings journey, it was the most valuable lessons, and it was the most intense and fun and productive, and that camaraderie as a team is solving problems. It was a euphoric moment, and as much as it was so painful at the time, the lessons from it I'll have my whole life, and I've built that muscle through that journey that allowed us to go to the next level. So when something breaks, when there's a crisis in your business, remember, this is the biggest opportunity.